Gobo took Jay, Madame Jay, Boston, Bobo, so I am the Tegi Jula Samsa, Lord of Pato, Jata, Vijay, Tole, Roger, Chicto, that Jay, Chulo, the law, Tole, Travel, like that. Flopatala of the Gajaga, my own DJ, get you loyal songs, Lord, Doja, Mapabella, Chijagaba, Pamata, Javando, Cajulo Monos, or and the Mongo Jotum, just and gay at the Pantica, Beverly. Because I just wanted to lay a little bit to Lomos or the Kunjotum, Jesse, Madame Baran, Agava, Jesse, Jambay, as the daily driven. Chujan, how you lost all one day, nothing of that decision on the cookies on your Lamajima. Garchen by Chapta, Johnson to St. George, told you, so that the water and page of the another than so the genius going to be Dorje Jolas or one more Kataju number of the Jigo. Requio de Tajin Lamajo, Dorje Jolas over the Salata Bajaja. The Monga Josa, the Turkey Josa House of Benjamin, that's only 20 legend by something like that. Chichi. Yatobe boy Javajila saws, and you don't know that you know about children in the so. The paper should ought some jelly. The paper to get check, Tashi direction.
To all the Dhamma brothers and sisters who have come here today, I'd like to thank you very much and wish you Dashi Delek.
Tini Kangina, Tabi Chushiba, Kangde, Man Namkata, and Besipji, Tamchitini, Devata, Dibi Che, Dungeta, Traviche, Asola, Zabelinga Mate, comes from simply Tamche Legi or Tele Pedi, some Jimbichava, Tonchimbo, Sachimbo, the Red. Decent was the Sachu Seven Boche, or comes from St. Jean Tamcha Mata, Poen de Shigila, Yamsili Jetela Tabi Chujere, the decent in Sama to get here.
What is sublime Dharma? Sublime Dharma is about Mother Sentient beings, wishing all Mother Sentient beings in the space, wishing them happiness and causes of happiness, wishing them to part with suffering and causes of sufferings. When we do this, we are not only talking about Mother Sentient beings on this planet, we are talking about Mother Sentient beings of the three realms of existence. And for them, and on behalf of them, we generate loving kindness and compassion. This is indeed a big responsibility, and it is a big task. When we generate loving kindness and compassion, we do so like mother does towards her children. And I want to thank you very much.
The Tambachula, the Kepadam is only Sobjang Has of Lamjan Tang Mambo Yere. Yenaya Tatuk at the new Sobjang Has and Botany Lamdung Chipari, the Tamje, there's a sharp Chechong Wamboram Mato Jabetini, Tatuk Sajega Sanarogi, Muyerte. Sajega Salasina, Karipedo, or the 70 Tamjel Pimba to the Ched, Radu Maimba, then I was Sajeva Tabe Mangia Tere, Muyo Yang Tere, then Jeva Yang Tere, Yinduna, then a Pindo Law, then Tere.
When we discuss sublime Dharma, the most informed and the scholarly ones can talk a great deal about the Dharma. They can give you a whole lot of teachings on the different classification of the yanas, self-liberation, bodhisattva, vehicle and the tantric vehicle. And there are many, many different paths leading to omniscience. But if you think about the ultimate goal, it does not matter which category you belong. The ultimate aim is the same, and that aim is omniscience. The reason why we have different levels of teachings is to suit the different intelligence levels or different capacity of the superior being, intermediate being, and the mediocre being. So whatever group of category one belongs, the one common denominator is that all aim to reach omniscience. Why do we do that? In order to benefit sentient beings. So therefore we can say that in all cases we have one goal, one result, and one benefit.
Tuni tatande dabel tili chuluk damada tangme pa yore te tabja yene me yor chikpare kangre dela dewa ta dibi che dunge ta tawe che re tamche me yor chikpare tuni yena ya pene tuni khashege namba saje ba de chira ba damada tuni chumta sori damada 상고 요래 대양 내 갑자 소소라는 건 전랑리 마도 주제배 들이 이제 대화식 분유 모친이 대화식 과제 상계를 제거 요래 상계의 강례 송전에 샘리 송고 요래 샘이 이제 샘의 용리 상계가 저 요리 참마 상계가 되니 저지 되리래
On this planet, in this world, there are countless number of different religions, and all have one goal, and one goal only, and that goal is to have happiness and causes of happiness, and to get rid of suffering and causes of sufferings. In that regard, we all have one goal. Then there are those belonging to the Buddhist. There are those who are belonging to other faiths. And there are those who are sectarian. And this kind of sectarian attitude is a temporary delusion, because the ground of all sentient being is what is called the Sugata Garva, or essence of those who have blissfully passed into parinirvana, talking about the Buddha nature. And all these Buddhas, they became Buddhahood from the nature of mind.
Tini teyang di soso di lam de la 맵조르당 집에 효 무족 지체발에 배나 람데는 맵조르당 집에 효나 드니 녀도 상계제 사람도 요래 람데는 마족로 때다 배는 상계제는 걸고 요래 올래 탑톡대 상마제 바 직장 내 좋고요 뭐 정말 상계제래 얘는한테 람네 지금 납세돼서 제발요 람데를 효나 상계 녀그 요래 드니 올래 드니 람은 마족로 때서 배나 코와는 내가 드니 말람답은 틀리돼서 내가 요리 제발요래.
The difference between Buddhist and non-Buddhist is how much effort one puts in reaching omniscience. If you do not walk the path to omniscience, and then obviously it will take a little while longer to reach omniscience. If you walk the path to omniscience, then it will be expeditious. Ultimately, of course, all sentient beings will reach enlightenment. If you do not enter the path of Dharma, then it will take some time in samsara, and when in samsara, one will be deluded.
Naba sum sung la yang, Tayang Penako, Yetchipare, Pena, Tampo New Metal, Tini Gamba, Tini Metal Kashiva, Deson Pena, Tini Tampo Lamin Penako, New Moba, Pamanam, Ole, Tini Parde Tini, Ole, Cordier Chutam, they looked at a dawn at Tini Ole, Sancho Seven Bochin and New Moba, Tini, Jervalam. Tini Tato Sangha, Tini, Numo Ramjime by Shiba, the Shiba Lams, Lams of the Rebellion, the Kazatik Julia Yonti, the Rebellion Bedrock, the tea, Lavri Basam Tene. Tea, not the Jamba Chechong at the end, saying I'm a Jamba Chechong at the bay, then Tatachi, Juram brings some the day. Sungu Shirap Chechong to real Latine, Sungu Yatinite, Tabla Kepichu Battery, Mambo Sungu Yore, Ramada Yore.
There are three different paths, but one ground. It is kind of likened to a flower. First, you have to have a shoot growing, and then it turns into a bud. Then bud blooms and become a fully bloom flower. So in terms of practicing Dharma, first you have to get rid of or abandon afflictive emotions. And gradually, when you become a seasoned practitioner, then you have to transform your afflictive emotions. And then as you advance, then it is the understanding of the nature of all afflictive emotions, which being the flip side of wisdom. So those will be the three different levels of understanding and practice Dharma. All these three levels are there in order to suit the temperament and mental capacity of individuals. So these are the different skillful methods available for the practitioners of different calibers.
Tini Terena, Marangisi, Karayana, Wangasiji, should call the temple and keyboard bay, just to accept the song bay. The one to the Wanga, the Asarmate and Royore, Tambo, one cardinal, one chair wrong, chong wrong, Tambo, Tamdu Kamnipena, or Luayas and Magiva to the Pang, give a joke that he Sotargatomba. Tini deep on the Sancho seven much Machina, somehow the two of them are on song. The Kayana, Dungata, dancing in Benatini, Jimping law Machina, Dungil, Georgia Meva, Tissanatani Bella, or Sancho Simple Boche, Sancho Simple Jimping law, the part of Sancho Simchi, one something. Della Sancho Simple, Penjo, either Pin, Sancho Simple, and Tribal, Member Simchi. Then he tell Musi Musarang and Jupalatini, Jupasenki, Munjuk is song there. Then he sang out one to take your one, remember, then he read.
My own topic of discussion for this particular session is about empowerment. And even in empowerment, we have those kind of different paths to suit different individuals. Whether it is a big empowerment or a small empowerment, at the time of taking refuge, one has to abandon or do away with afflictive emotions. and try to put your mind into thinking virtuous thoughts, which calls for the self-liberation vow. And then we have the bodhicitta mind generation. Without bodhicitta in one's mind stream, one is not fit to receive tantric empowerment. And if one does not have an altruistic mind, which is by definition to benefit others, one will not be able to liberate from suffering. So when we talk in terms of generation of bodhicitta, we're talking about two different bodhicittas. One is the aspirational bodhicitta, and one is action or applied bodhicitta. Aspirational bodhicitta deals with the wonderful qualities of altruistic mind or bodhicitta. Applied bodhicitta is actually putting into practice the aspiration that you begin with. And once you have both the aspirational and applied bodhicittas in your mind stream, then you can be introduced to the tantric empowerment.
Teni teyanga teni di tsawa mangji jamzhong ni zhogu yore. Kashi nyungshe lala chige di sangha ga wang ni shunde ye jamzhu donpa ni shunde me nangba konglo nodo me teni samni kashi yore. Te pena ta pukchung chung samno nangshire gangi la lam dela sobsang hasam ga lam la jokona 상계를 막 띵지 남도 세적이 쉬어 말해 남도 정말 상계 이렇게 띵이요래 상계 좀 띵이지 야 상계 좀 띵이 취대 송이야나 디这个 롭네 들이 소소 동의를 좋네 들이 진을 좋아 탑도 거지 남대면은 취되는 상계송 상계가 깔아 띵인 거요래 대 취래 취송 약바담 그 핀도요 말 대응 갖다 빼는 암조는 저기 빼는 들이지나 대담 핑거 낭바 사계에 비춘데 당보 투 들이 바드티 동나로 삼로 땅네 들이 타마디 동대 아주 생고도 무슨 또네더니 투삼 감도 섬만 좀나 고래 쪽보게 핑거요 말에 디선네더니 디 냠서 랑네 이라고 유라 또네 랑이 치체네 드니 제네 지나 동로 나라 핑송 다데 치는 민들이 저 핑저래 데 동무데 겐드르 빼나 데는 사계를 잡 추는 람 겐드는 좋대 따따따 사지 쫀디데네 주베더니 라마 게위신이 탐게 겐드르에 빼나 디선네더니 꼰조 섬텔 마티나 드니 상sem다 상하니 고는 죽지 싸와니 여 말에 빼나 드리 차대래 돼
You have to start with refuge. Some people aspire to receive tantric empowerment, but they are not so keen or they do not wish to receive refuge ordination. This is kind of the mentality of small children. Self-liberation, bodhisattva, and tantric vows or tantric ordinations, these are only known to the omniscient Buddha, no one else. These levels of teachings were the teachings of Gautama Buddha. So you have first the Buddha, and then his teachings. And teachings are imparted on us by those who have already liberated themselves and who are able to show or to lead on to the path to omniscience. So it is not sufficient to just give an audible teaching, a bunch of teachings and make it, just listening alone and imparting an academic teaching is not enough. In Buddhist teaching, you have to first, quote and unquote, hear the teachings. And then you have to reflect upon what you have learned. And finally, you have to take that teaching and meditate on it. The hearing alone is not enough. When you actually practice, and when you have an experiential understanding of what you practice, and only then one is able to share that experience with others. A patient who had taken certain medicines and got healed, and that patient can effectively relate to others the kind of medication that is necessary to heal certain ailments based on his or her own experience. So the Buddha is the protector, Dharma is the path, and Sangha is the companion to walk the path to omniscience. And starting from the Buddha right down to your Lama, all are classified as Sangha. And without taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, one will simply not be able to practice Dharma effectively, let alone become the right kind of vessel to contain tantric teachings.
Tani da jabzu sumle pena tani da ri jeli sebji tamche jerchik jimorangi je yore na tani deyang pena mabjana saje mato ba jana to pati to gare jera mabjana tata ge zongwa yola zepa semje dibe tani yumo ba da namto da tamche dela demban jene tani pena khwalen changwe yore tani yumo ba da namto de khama dela jerchik ni bo khwalen sangje yin long tani pena ko cho nyoma jinje cho de sujang dong de mo de chu che de mo de be ju dong de ma da ba na yi cho de ga pena ko sangje ge jo yin de be ju dong ya me ba sem khwalen sangje ge je yin yumo ba da ma de na tani ra dong la chu ge ja sa ka ni yin ge be ju dong ya ole tani dong je me ba di sa le tani pena da dang ba je go yo le de.
If you take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and then we know that our nature is the Buddha nature, or we have what is called the Sugata Garva. And then we need to practice in order to reach any level of realization. If we do not make that effort, we will not achieve any kind of realization. If we do make that effort, we have the capability to reach liberation. Right now in samsara, we have this dualistic idea of self and others, afflictive emotions, and all conceptual thoughts. We treat them as having a kind of subject and object dualism. And in that dualism, we have grasping. We treat it as independently existing and real. Consequently, we are in samsara. So therefore, in order to reach omniscience, there is the need to filter out the afflictive emotions and conceptual thoughts. To use an example, it'll be something like bucket of water. When a bucket of water is polluted with a great deal of sediments, bring a stick and stir it up, and then see if it is fit for human consumption, you'll find that it is not. Likewise, if that Sugata Garva or the Buddha nature is completely obscured with layers and layers of obscurations, and that Buddha nature is not going to be able to manifest its radiance. So, in order to attain the Dharmakaya state of Buddhahood, one has to then filter out all these afflictive emotions and conceptual thoughts.
Deva gona deva jo drop machine deva jo kangli samyung ji yiping lo je mishi ole ta da di ju bo de wang de song de ni deva do dang dong a le la zong de ni de la do pa ta drop je ye de sin je lo chen de ni de cha yo le.
In this world, human beings put in a great deal of effort in order to get rid of the external sufferings. And they put in an awful lot of effort in our daily chores and daily activities. And because of those efforts, one is able to attain a certain amount of peace and happiness, achieve certain amount of peace and happiness. But the real pain and suffering are imprinted on one's mind stream, which needs to be cleansed. But it is only the enlightened one. It is the Buddha who has the know-how and ability to actually cleanse the mind stream. That is why he is called the supreme one of the two-legged beings. Buddha is supreme because Buddha has what may be called discriminating wisdom. Para as being beyond samsaric wisdom. Because Buddha has shown us how to purify the mental afflictive emotions. The Buddha has a great deal of discriminating wisdom, whereas sentient beings, on the other hand, are ignorant. Sentient beings aspire to have happiness and causes of happiness, but they do not know how to go about achieving those happiness and the causes of happiness. They do not desire pain and suffering, yet they do not know how to put an end to pain and suffering. So what they desire and how they go about achieving it are completely contradictory and opposite.
Tela number Sanji be Nadu Rubake, Penamara be Son. Are Chuja Zawa to same Jawa Chu. The way it's our same with Nana Yore. Mari Dunga Tamchia, same as Yore. Mangos Nigunga, same as over your age. Same Karigas over in the Penada. Marepak is over your head. Marepak Kari. Rangas have with the yellow Ragatak Mashi Devata Dunga Jokaka Mashire. Three telepena, Monitella Marekpa there. Rangas have with the yellow Matova Tela Marekpa there. Oh, tell us have with him in the corner. Oh, Tata Marekpa, Dacha there, Pena. Tell it in it, Tata. Topa check, Chadang, you topa check your oh, Chadang, you let in the new yet a jet on the Tenny Penaco. Tell it how you're it, only Chadang Mortum let Jungle your it. Doing about the matter of Tom Marek Barret, then Rangus him down the tune. Oh, Tarang Chadang, you're doing about Solobore, take your Chadang, you're doing about Sola. Then the rainy volatility, Yipping law, Jaguar.
Milarepa summed up what Dhamma practice is, or what Dhamma practice should actually be. It is not kind of seeping through the pages of the teachings of sublime Dhamma, but rather one should be focused on the mind stream, nature of one's own mind stream. All the pain and suffering of the past is creation of one's own mind, and it shall be so in the future as well. The pain and suffering were the creations of one's own ignorance. Ignorance as not seeing the true nature of one's own mind. The root cause of ignorance is attachment. And this attachment came about because of attachment and aversion. It came from attachment, aversion, and ignorance. From attachment, aversion, and ignorance arose the 84,000 different afflictive emotions. All these attachment, aversion, and ignorance, the three of them, are the product of one's own mind. So to begin with understanding that attachment, aversion are negative is very important. Antidotal weapon against attachment, aversion is bodhicitta.
Any day in the data pena, Musa, one lot of Jabdo, the taco choton, the Jabson, love the showly. Parang senator Conteo, oh, Tata, Dala Damata in a chapa chadang, you can't cheer that in a ten, oh, that Dani, that is cheered old, ole. They are thought Dandy, Taylor Pena, Dani in the Tata Chetanga, that Jabding Usu or to Chile Peraco. Ole. The 다음에 다저 때는 배나 오 다다랑 강나 제와요 들이 맞제 봐요 말이 파마 올레 로모 보다 배지 맞제 봐요 말이 사비 이를 때 뒤야 자체도 빠체서 들이 점들이 접들로나 오 문에 전에 다닝이 메리 땅아래 철산 들이 차당용 고대 땅용로 샤송나 들이 세브도 빼놓고 첫 차원으로 첫 잘못해서 잡는 들이 르르 차오네 들이 셔래도 들이 생각대로 때다 딱게 동호요 들이 차오네 들이 딩앙니 들이 오 다상하지 냠들이나 다 좋은 게 난게 샘도 대직인 뭐 열에 다 줄서 봉칸 찜시 이걸 탐지 빼나 다 들이 상하게 동고 와고 어때지나 오, 주 이전에 상제가 저래 때서 살로다 오다 인도 가오리 가이나더니 이 대통제를 했지.
Before one receives empowerment, it is important to receive refuge ordination, which calls for, after that, looking at the nature of one's own mind. When you do so, then you will find that there is attachment towards nears and dears and aversion towards your enemies. And when you investigate the nature of this attachment and aversion, you will come to some revelation. What is normally considered as enemy, you will find that had in many lifetimes been your parents, boyfriend, girlfriend, etc., etc. Those who are considered as your nears and dears, they had been your enemies in former life. And you will come to this kind of realization, and when you do so, then there will be a form of equanimity. When you achieve a form of equanimity, then that will be kind of bringing a glass full of cold water and pouring it on to another container filled with bubbling hot water. A balance would be achieved, and it would be kind of warm and fuzzy feeling. So when you have that, then you are ready to be introduced to empowerment. And once you are introduced to empowerment, then you will be introduced to things like your 5 aggregates, 5 elements, and 5 sense bases are nothing less than complete purity, etc., etc. When something like this is said to you, and when you are introduced to these things, you will have a kind of mixed reaction to it, thinking that probably they are true, probably not. Kind of a mixed reaction with certain amount of skepticism and doubt.
대다위는 상하가 너도 모르고 상하 또 모르고 강래지나 카시에 또뭐 아제 니 서워 니 빼놓고 또뭐 쳐보나 빼내 짝색들 짝사들 때문에 저 정모시고 쳐들 털어 파는 털어 좀또 파고 차와야 좀도 저 탐제 떠리운 거래 상하도 말한 거라 제목 침봉 아제 침봉 탐제들이 빼나 남상 고통 어때지요 막 되게 상하 상고래세.
Tantric practice is also called esoteric tantric practice, esoteric being secret. Why should tantric practice be very secretive. And that is because some peoples have a kind of very, very thick layer of ignorance. And it's very difficult to penetrate through this shield. To such individuals, if you reveal this esoteric tantric practice, and it is going to be something like pouring drops of water on a red hot iron. It's going to make a great deal of noise. And so esoteric tantric teachings cannot be revealed to those who have a great deal of ignorance and egocentric pride. Just quickly, I said egocentric pride because if I just say pride in the Western world, pride also has some positive connotation. So egocentric pride, selfish pride.
Te kare na pena di chadang yo yasona sewe de lok ha ko sewe de lok de ha ko to o jetang ge tini ya sang ji ser sem ji thang ji sewe ya de tini na kha ta yap cho chi bo ta tini ye chi pa le tini sano ge ti na ju sem ji thang ji ye ne sem khang ge ju de o zu ya wa de pena de ba ma le o ne kam na lang tan de ji ya de ba ma le tini sem khang ge zu ya pa de sem khang kare gyon le gyon la o le ye ne ma de la to ba le ji kang gyon le gyon cho pa le pena tini ge de cha ha ko le sa chok sem ji na这刚才的哦，打成了王的呢，他们让头个有嘞，什么让王头了哦，什么可能个知道，你刚就是嘞，对嘞。
So when you were able to pacify or subside attachment and aversion, this will help you to understand the real essence of the Dharma teaching. When you understand the real essence of Dharma teaching, then you will come to realization that the basic ground of the sentient beings and the enlightened beings is the same. This basic ground is something like the huge expanse of space. It is like the huge ocean. You will come to realize that both outer cosmos and inner inhabitants are the makings of one's own mind. Therefore, you will come to the conclusion that neither the outer cosmos nor the inner sentient beings are real. So mind by nature is very, very easy to transform into whatever you want to transform. Why? Because mind is unborn. It is not. It does not have an inherent existence. So when you generate, you are able to generate bodhicitta, and then you are empowered. Your mind is empowered. When your mind is empowered, because the nature of mind is that mind can be shaped in any way you want, because it is not absolute.
chūlu shūla chādāng tōkpa ma chīli, chūla hīla pēla chādāng tōkpa ma chīwa rē, tēla pēla, chādāng tōkpa ma chīla, tā pāma na samyīngjī chīga yore, samyīngjī ka kārī pīgirī de, tākpa sāngjī ka sā, tā tōk sāngjī ka sā tā, nē kāp tōrī sōngu dewa lōk chū tāng chī, samyīngjī tsēwārī chōng yore de, tēla ngā ka pēla kō Rinpoche tāwa te, tsēwārī chōng de, dewa tamche tsewa rin chunga de, pinda dewa chunga de, tsewa de re, samyingye de, le tamche le wale, ta teni san chok tsen chuk yatsa wale, teni san hak wale, ta chogo yo re.
So if you are able to generate loving kindness and compassion, how would this benefit you and others, you may ask? So if you generate bodhicitta, you will be treating all sentient beings as your own parents. And by doing that, you will not be generating attachment and aversion in your mind stream. A mind stream which is free of attachment and aversion means a mind stream filled with loving kindness and compassion. When you are able to generate loving kindness and compassion, ultimately it is going to help you reach omniscience. And before you do that, it is going to cause you to be reborn in any of the three higher realms of existence. And all these come about because of your love. We say loving kindness and compassion, bodhicitta, is beneficial to others, and it helps other beings and benefits oneself. It's a mutually rewarding, enlightened mind. So when you have bodhicitta in your heart, then you are ready to receive the tantric teachings or introduction to the empowerment.
Sancho Semte, Chile, Semjin Tamja Pamana Tonga Tamina, Ta Pamana Tonga, Ta Tarunga, the Zangi, Saji to Semji, Deli, Semji Tamjela, Zangi, Dela Tangyang, Jalapenaco, Tata Bada in Hava Jayori, Ta take Anche, Ta Yeri Penaco, Pamata Maret, Ta Nile Churanila, Ranila Tena. Yelita saying you want at that any Toma Yishing young Agarab, Nanga to you want at the Nang Numong at the Madapa couple of Simji, Repena Tapa couple Yishing Agarab, Bella. Then you know what the Kari till your flower, Ben the couple, Maria, that you know, she don't chibu, give up you send with the look, Kayoma day for a carriage. Yeah, then I did. I said, I saw me do the castle. They you married, you're on you married. That is true, sir. You know, you should get the journal your head, the Tonton. Ah, pay late, how it happened at that. When you turn it, simply some jet, I just hungry. Except the chipari. Oh, tongue, I got it drum at the yard. That's a little jay, can you Chosa in our simply military don't say. Taha lady, that. That took you there.
So when you generate loving kindness and compassion, you are generating because you understand that all mother sentient beings are your parents. But even then, you will perceive all sentient beings as your parents in a dualistic way. The kind of good sentient beings and not so good sentient beings. The enlightened beings up there and sentient beings down here, kind of dualism. The pure versus impure. But when you are introduced to the fact that the 5 elements, when purified, become the 5 consorts, or the 5 dakinis. That is the 5 outer elements. And the 5 inner afflictive emotions, when purified, become the 5 wisdoms. You will all of a sudden say, well, is it that easy to transform the elements and the afflictive emotions, or the afflictive emotions, into the consorts and wisdom, etc., etc.? Well, yes, it is that simple. To make this point, when you are consumed with anger, for example, at that very moment, trying to meditate in the true nature of mind. And when you are able to do that, in that state, you will find that anger has completely pacified and disappeared. So you will find that very strong negative emotion, has gone, and it is completely off your radar. So you say, is it that simple? Yes, it is that simple. The anger has transformed into wisdom. And it is very, very easy to make that transformation. And when you find out through experience that it is possible to do this without a great deal of effort, you will come to the realization that all sentient beings are just like yourself with the same kind of ability. And then you will also come to the conclusion that the outer phenomena, like the cosmos, in its purest form is nothing less than a celestial mansion, and that the inner inhabitants are no less than deities.
우리 동들이 동들이는 들이다다 왕들 고아 니래经历变了 어래 cap고초서는 띠네 람자와서 냠서 랑나 제버고섬 토바 들이 전거요 왕대 이나들이 다다 왕들라 나게 공리시 바지도 라왕이 봐 문이 라왕이 봐대 왕라지네 라나 라왕이 봐 하고요래 다다다 변라 어래 탐지 롱신 라왕 더 변라 느끼 탐지 생기지 봐 생코랑 어래 요뭐뭐마다 라왕 통로 라왕 치고 들리는 거요래 대다다 왕은 뭐 신소나 명다라 민지 왕지 민지 왕들 가리래 변라 사계다 생기지 사계는 멤버에 생기는 마음이바래 이열도 빼놓고 초당 차롱 따와 빼나 매도당 감바따와 Three charge yore. Me didn't bet up my class is a Sajig on the person chopare. Same year that the domain about naturally. Yup and a dombo metal dollar to the corner. Didn't member say but tap, three sharp symbol in Tampilla. He just an object in the top on car James Tampi, object here. Didn't maybe one song.
So it is as simple as that. As far as the word empowerment is concerned, there are two ways to introduce you to the concept of empowerment. But in short, taking refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha and treating the three roots as your path and resulting in the actualization of the three kayas would be the meaning of empowerment. So when you have the freedom, or when you have managed to empower your mind, the complete freedom of the wind and mind is empowerment. One quick kind of footnote here. When we talk about wind and mind, to those who are completely new to the idea, it'll sound like, something that makes no sense whatsoever. But, this is wind and mind, the kind of, two plies of the thread. When you're talking about mind, this is a very much an integral part of the teaching, especially pertinent to tantric practice. So it's not just kind of using wind and mind randomly, but it is just like that, wind and mind. Back to Rinpoche's translation. So when you have this control, freedom, and power over wind and mind, you will understand that both the outer physical phenomena and the inner sentient beings are the making of the mind. Now, I said that there are two different ways of kind of introducing you to the concept of empowerment. The second one is, we would say, empowerment is to ripen the mind stream or continuum of sentient beings. We would say the mind stream of the Buddha is ripe, whereas the mind stream of a sentient being is not ripe. Although the basic ground of both the sentient being and the enlightened being is the same, because of this question of ripe and unripe, the mind of the enlightened being is something like water, whereas the mind stream of the non-enlightened beings, sentient beings, would be like a frozen ice sheet. Or we can use the flower example. Enlightened being, fully bloomed flower. sentient being, flower, yes, but it is only a budding flower. It hasn't bloomed yet. And both the bud and the fully bloomed flower is the product of one stem, really, the same. So empowerment introduces one to one's own nature, to one's own basic ground. Introduction to one's aggregates, to the elements, etc., and to the sense basis.
等于忘了忘生忘一切这有的，忘生这边呢，路明白接人啊明白啊，等于谁明白了做人，等于这边了，生活活动，但是我另外一种的没有呢，个一句话就讲了大概的，我你个的我说人个生的嘛就完，你人就都有的，我了，我一个的了。사바를 함이 줄지와 말에 이제 코요와 말에 소소 랑그 생문이 디드바다 저는 내가 랑들이 상기래 돼. 그 위자제.
There are two different empowerments. One is threefold empowerment, the other is fourfold empowerment. The threefold empowerment is in order to ripen one's body, speech, and mind. Three different empowerments are given. To ripen one's body, the creation stage of the practice. The empowerment that's, to ripen the body is to do with the creation stage of the practice. Empowerment to ripen one's speech is the mantra recitation. Empowerment to ripen one's mind is to do with the completion stage of the practice. And the fourth empowerment is the essence body of the enlightened being. Essence body is attained when one completely purifies one's own mind stream. It is not an acquiring of a new mind stream, but getting rid of or purifying the obscurations that obscure the mind that was always pure from the beginningless time.
오 매와도 요노 가와체라 뜨르데레 벨라 루데 무포 제 덴바트바 마레제야레 강레데나 이제는 답변은 요왕아래 접대요래 사셔베로 문에요 그 요왕아 접대래 세 요왕아데 즉바래 드린 디다다 나기 다디 제데나 나여서 바테 다디 힘을 주고 습지 탐지에 동라 산축 습지 제수니 얼에 나한테 매와 차로 요래 드리페는 루이드 다다 쭉이나 때 다지 가리래 다 루이드 얼에 이제는 닭바리에서 마다반 나와지 파장 대양 데바트 바 말에 제주 공부다 그래 내로 시방안이 루이드 디디 셔서나 람상 셈라 사이 것에 이 사이 것 셈라 종 양당양도 삼로 땅나 고발라서 버티나 셈라 샤리고 요래.
So what is ripe, what isn't ripe is dependent upon how you practice the Dharma. When you receive empowerment, we say the first empowerment to do with the creation stage of the practice means it empowers, it sows the seed for the actualization of Nirmanakaya state of Buddhahood. Tibetan word for Nirmanakaya is Tulku. The etymology is Tul is manifested with the connotation that it's kind of fabricated. Ku is body, manifested body, or almost sounding like fabricated body. When you say Tul, there is a connotation that it is, something false is taking place. Like pretending to have something which in essence you did not. So, this physical body of ours is not real. It is composite. It is the conglomerate. It is the assembly of the 5 elements. But we have this notion that no matter how this physical body was formed, we have this notion that it belongs to me, and there is attachment and grasping. Oh, this me, it belongs, the physical body belongs to me. The me has to be now transformed. So when you have loving kindness and compassion, then the I and my, me will disappear. So the physical body is empowered so that it has sown the seed to actualize the Nirmanakaya state of Buddhahood. It has the ability, because the physical body is from the beginning, last time, it's basic, pure. But it is not real as having an independent existence. It does not. So when you detach, you dismantle this idea that the physical body is real and that it has an absolute existence, the minute when you dismantle this, then you become the deity itself in your meditation, in the creation stage. When you visualize as the deity, you actually then sow the seed for the actualization of the deity.
Dina drubzaga san kosum dea pela la yadam tabje saji chuku jasala hik channe saji tabje ge tok zewa chibe tok kwetini chukoni longko tor de tapashin kham tabje ti la long ju zo bo ko su drubza tabje ta longko re ole de maje nguse tini lowa ro soju kham de tor ko nguse jiti me la phepti yore ole तेने सिंपली तमजे न साजे द मायों में बखाने सिंपली साजे हाक हो मारे तेने छामा साजे कायु मिशी सम सिंपली तमजे साजे तमजे सिंपली खाने युक्तों जिते सुगो का मांपो सोंग रहते ये ना ताता को ड्रबजा मुझे लोंग दे पेन ताता जो ट्रिप को थांगा को डाला तेरी ते ये ला जोंगने और ताता करे so सेम याग द जोंगला ते साउ शान सेम कोरांग ये ने 메롱 동바다래 벨라 동만이 샤디올 사카테 싹동송 요거서 샘코랑 걸 샤데 뭐 요만이 잡송나기나 하고 차데래 slate랑 샘네 달마서 산이 셔버까블 샘 되가랑 아니 네 slate 걸은 전도요래 바도 롱걸 상제제 드니 데라 유는 뭐곰 쌀 다 땡이데 베나 사우 셈레 유노보 곰 대곰버선들이 마마보다 드니 체들이 가지네 사데 제야메 바셈라 드니 찰고 요래 사우 셈레 찰고래 다 되는 베나 강리들이 이제는 게네 ngajar 사야 ngajar 강리에 되나 사 속 적든 가서도 동반지대 열에 창발라 삼년제매래 되는 거 상축세 뷰를 제나 사디 소는 무슨 톱들이 당아 제는 사롱 마사롱 들 사디 투소 무슨이 선이란 거잖아 돈이 이제 카바다가 사디 소의 톱들이 드니 대 땡이는 들이 아주도 가두는 들이 진거 맞아가 원래 기시의 사디 왕의 셈리 샤트바 사고 샤마다 사디 이치때 뭐 진탑나 진탑고 요래 변나 드니드니나 봐도 드니 줄이지 보자 덮고요래 드니 사지 드니 디용 디제다가 덮고요래 대변나
three kayas of the three kayas or three bodies of the enlightened being. Once you attain the Dharmakaya state of Buddhahood, by the power of Buddha's compassion and loving kindness, one can manifest as Sambhogakaya state of Buddhahood. In our visualization in the creation stage, we visualize the Sambhogakaya state of Buddhahood and their celestial Pure Land. In our practice in the creation stage, we are practicing to actualize the Sambhogakaya state of Buddhahood. Nirmanakaya, there are countless number of Nirmanakayas on this planet, for example. So there is no telling where the enlightened beings might be, because they are everywhere. So Gyalpa Rinpoche, the founder of Tigung Kagyu lineage, has categorically said that enlightened beings are in the nature of sentient beings. So visualization of the deity is important. When you are able to visualize the deity, then you will experience something called the union of clarity and emptiness. When you experience this, when you pass away from this life, and you will reach the Sambhogakaya state of Buddhahood in the Pardo stage, that is to say, after death and before rebirth. In order to do that, there are 4 things necessary in your practice: meditation, clarity, purity, and stability. Meditation is when you are doing the creation stage of the practice. Use the recitation of mantra in conjunction with your meditation. Recite a lot of mantras. So always trying to visualize the deity. Make an imprint on your mind stream so that you don't forget. That's meditation. Next one is clarity. So making an indelible imprint on your mind stream, the form of the deity. And the third is purity. This calls for, quote and unquote, deity confidence. Thinking and believing that you are actually the deity. Because you do have the emptiness part of the deity in you. So when you have a clear practice in creation stage, then you will see the clarity of the deity imprinted. And the last one is stability. A stabilized meditation is that when the meditation becomes so kind of firmly rooted that you can always kind of see the deity with your mind's eye. So if you have these four qualities, meditation, clarity, purity, and stability, then one would be able to transform this illusory body into the body of the Sambhogakaya state of Buddhahood in the Pardo stage.
Sar tin ta samji ta jiba di rai ko jin chalu ramida mangbo yore the holodim to mango ramida yore te tamji kade dina parsin trokta tini shiwa na pena choksum dorje salam ge yon tin tamji sal sharjere pena te tamji da de re she pa pena mango de nyumo na to tamji min ra ore de 대탐지 남도 탐지 라사를 조선은 미진 고제를 내가 그냥 지금 말해 뉴모바 라사를 시소나 레사케요 말해 되게 단단하다 망보요래 되게 제는 제발함나 다리데 강말라 오 대탐지 답다래서 발생 쪽다 될라서 보통래 살띠다
Purity. Going back to purity, in the creation stage of practice, when you're visualizing the deity will have different kinds of ornaments. You can actually count them, the numbers of ornaments. And the costumes that the deity wears, etc. Chakra Samvara, for example, adorned with a garland of human heads. And these would be the symbol of 6 paramitas, for example. The attainment of the 13th Vajra Bhumi, for example. These different numbers would mean different bhumis, different paths, etc. A garland of human heads would, for example, symbolize the eradication of afflictive emotions and conceptual thoughts, likened to the decapitation of human heads. In the case of humans, once the head is cut off, then there's no question of that human being doing any kinds of deeds, end of the activities. And in some cases, some 6 ornaments would correspond to the 6 perfections, etc., etc.
Jerem de sawo tempo yongo na teni ha la jing yongo le jerem de men da ha de ba long da de ne teni pen de ngam cha ma bo da gu de jeram de de ba ma thop pa de tini da go yo le de tin ne nga ga ra wang de tini de tam je la tini lu le jeram gong nga de song na zo tini nga da ba kam ni ning ge ne na de so ye nga ko ti la de pa te na zo tini de sem ma yin pa je go le dong tam je lu jeram nga de gang ge dong le 좀 다른 샘디 남도다 유모가 카시 샘도 장마소야 변나 저 아메리카 초 장마소 제 마보도 천고 대는 이 조건 나바나도 타톡은 뭐 용도 샘도 장마소 고요래 샘도 장마조는 샘 코랑 상계래 변나 올래 대 유모분 남도다 마디바 디 제주체라 르라 샘 등이지 이제 당부 라주라 대도 고요레지 대그 룽아 예수 라망 탑요레지
If you want to have a clear visualization during your creation stage, you have to seek the help of mantras. The creation visualization is like fire. Recitation of mantra is like wind. So you have to recite 100,000 mantras to make your mantra effective, to enhance your creation's visualization. When you recite mantras, you gain the independence of speech, because the speech is empowered. Your physical body is empowered to be able to visualize yourself as deity. And during the creation stage, it is very important to focus on the spinning mantra around the seed syllable at your heart center. So why do we do this kind of visualization of yourself, your physical body transforming into that of the deity and reciting the deity mantra? The sole purpose is to purify one's own mind stream. It is somewhat similar to water purification in the United States. Physical body is transformed into the deity's body. Speech is transformed into recitation of mantra. Mind is focused on concentration or samadhi. So this is how to empower your body, speech and mind.
Teni di wang ka che la de zhe dong ya wang ka che le cheng nam cheng le de tam je song go wang de tam je dong ji ba le o le ha de zang khor dang le khor go yo le de le de de za long da wang o de ya de yo le de ti ka ni o ze do de mang bo yo le dang bo la gong de o ze zhu ji de ka a sa je le chap ser sim ji tab je chap xie ke yo le de zo so so la sam ni je ka che yo na ti chu go yo le jibchi ka na sam ni je che bo yo na sa je tam che le de ga de yo ma sim ji ne ze wa yo na sa je tam je de ga yo le sa je chu ba de ke yo yo le sim ji tam je la de dung ge ge za wa da ji le hong zuo le sam ni je de go yo le so che sam ni je de ge o de chu le 제담을 삼hinge 제라 대sem지 답제 유라 삼hinge 대다 제톱거요래 대생지 초바다 sem지 르장 ወዘር테 대래 소주 삼hinge 제종을 두고래 저저
In some empowerments, you are given nectar. In others, you are given empowerment with a rotating mantra, beads, mala rather. And this particular one, empowerment given with a mala, it ties in with prana and a nadi and prana, subtle channels and wind, as in nadi, prana, and bindu. And also during the empowerment, especially the creation stage, we talk and we visualize lot of light rays radiating from you. And these light rays reach out to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as well as all sentient beings. The more loving kindness and compassion you have, the more intense the generation of these light rays. And when you have lot of love and kindness depicted as light rays reaching out to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and these light rays are very pleasing to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. These light rays, being your bodhicitta, are also very beneficial to sentient beings, because sentient beings have a lot of attachment and grasping, because these are the root cause of their sufferings. So when you generate loving kindness and compassion, not only is it beneficial to yourself, but the power of your bodhicitta is also going to impact sentient beings and to some extent lessen their pain and suffering.
Ini dēna tātā dī wāngi tōng kusōng tōng wāng sīmzir dē tamchī tā tōka tōng dīno wāngi tōng tā kārī rī dīna dī sēmī tōng tōpa tāp rīt sēmī tōng dī tō gō na sēmzir tātā dāngdī chakrom chāwa chādī dē shūgō na bē na sām hīngi bē na dē tōng tāp yuwa mārī kēchik jīng tōng na yāng kēchik yāng dē chādāngā tōpa drip rō rī 빼나 차당 휴치보 많이 배 남도 충충나 잘 충충 밤나 너 봐요 말에 배는 바들 오 차충충 밤나 팽게요래야 남도 충충 담제 돌라오래 결혼하지 못해 잡는 컴바 담제 컨도 빼들 차당는 거좀 맡았나 드니 냠이 강지네 되게 라도래 드니 와서 담책의 정시바장 사계네 주베 담책 가리 사계 담책 담자데 소그 서양 산족샘마 동대 담자가 책 대래. 드는 아주 유라 산족샘된 충분 충용도 대주요래. 드는 담책 대 서라메 라신 방쪽 제거를 저기 주 담책 차송대写지요 말이지. 올래. 소주샘나 삼제와긴 제와지. 서체송의 담책들이 체송해. 제바대선 투주요래. 오, 담책이 뭐 소주요지. 람상 코토도 촌을 람상 마시나 니자가 발초서나 다 담책 냠나 나냐와 남이로 요래죠 다 담책 냠들 줄 산촉세면은 산촉세면 코토고 지로 코토 코난 거 라미 셰당래 때 메도 나쁜 레벨에 메도 나쁘래 때 담책 송 마송 강라죠 소시 유를 안 유를 빼나 해당당가 예라 소바 니자 발마 줘봐 짱마 맞으나 때냐와 그람이 해당 대리 까빠르싹버 게자야 콘트롤적인 요말세도 너는 담책 락버져도 콘트롤다 차도 올해 맞지 대라 소바래 대탐체 담책에 잡고래 정말서 담책에 정지 받아 소 가리 찌와래 찌와 올해 샘티 탐제를 찌와요나 되니 라마다 로마다 탐제게 디 담책이 받아 모시고래 담책 설아요는 석캡상 설아면 소 종라 그요래 란동래 올해 란동 종래 이동양 종고요래 라지 예미래
Body, speech, and mind, three empowerments. And these three empowerments are given in order. These three empowerments are methods for realizing one's own mind as such, or cittata. If you need to thaw away that ice built up in your mind stream, then loving kindness and compassion is absolutely indispensable. Because a state of mind that is partially obscured by obscurations, sometimes you will see the glimpses of true nature, and then no sooner you see a glimpse of the true nature, it will be obscured. So when you have conceptual thoughts arising, when you have negative emotions arising, it is important to deal with them straight away. It is easy to deal with an insignificant amount of rain or shower, but when it turns into a thunderstorm, then it's going to be very difficult to deal with. So dealing with your mind, dealing with afflictive emotions, etc. Now, after receiving empowerment, there is a thing called samaya. Tibetan word is tamci. Etymology is tam, is tamcha, Rinpoche says, which is to make a pledge or resolution. Ci is the word. Giving your word to adhere to certain things that you are required to fulfill as obligation. So whoever is able to remain within the confines of these obligations will have freedom and have complete control over, will have gained the full benefit of receiving empowerment. The breakage of samaya means it is something like breaking the thread which holds together all your mala beads. When the samaya is broken, it is not difficult to mend it within 24 hours. Whatever violations had taken place, you can mend those violations. But if you just let them be, then the violation or the breakage of samaya, broken samaya, means facing the hell realm. Anger, for example, the nature of anger is hell. And the seed is hell and the fruit is hell. Just as if you sow a black seed, flower seed, you can expect to see a black flower. So like negative emotions like anger, jealousy, aggression, etc., you have to be very, very careful in your effort to observe the samaya. Have to be very careful to ensure that you do not lose love and kindness, bodhicitta. When you have bodhicitta towards all sentient beings include lama as well as disciples. When you have loving kindness and compassion towards sentient beings, that is your samaya between disciple and lama, and a disciple with disciples. When the samaya is not broken, when the samaya is intact, and it is a win-win situation, and above everybody else, oneself will be the winner. And keeping samaya has a dual purpose of benefiting yourself as well as others.
Shela Denise on Atam take the bella, Samayam Bumde, song pay, Mambo Yore, one really tam take the Yore. Daytime just so dinner, Tini, really get the team Mambo do it, Tam just so dinner, Tawa Nada excellent do Yore. Nada some tung carry dinner, Tea Namia Benago, Tinto Chukuro body, Tinto Ishiropa, Tokutam take, the Chipolan do Yore. They carry energy, oh. No Allah about Zug Latini Chadang Topa Machet, Zug them all, Zug not on Goret, Dalatini Chadang Topa Machet tablet. Tetam get Zugla Dad neither in the Chadang Topa Machena. Oh, same Korang Machi Tonte, same Korang Jinshi Gata, Rangas same Rangasungu Yoripe, Jinshi take all the Shirap Namji Shirap Dena, oh, Zangi Langdon Jibi Shirap, Delatine, Jinshi Pa Mayang Pateuna. Oh, Tini Tap in a Kana, Namto the China Atini, the cook, the Pushing meats watch the Belarasala. Don't do it. Nam to tam che torso tini tinshi chipola de yore. Deva mayang ba chipo. Teletene bella tata de ring jingwi le sungore. Ta dokshin sang una mena le bena. Shirik la sok ma shona dele lak ba hi ma go bena. Ne tan ti de de tamna. Ti chipo na tini ko. Chadang to ba zawa ni jesa yo ma. Gang ni shirik la sok ma shoba de Ranga tinshi rik pa de nyumo bo ba 파 뉴모보다 남도 어디서 만나고 코라사 신디나 매풍 집어넣는 버싱 뭐 가랬다면 참아 책도 빼대나기 차당도 같이 요 말에 닌디 요 말에 남도 담겨라 디스나들이 캡주 야도 톱동시에나야 디테파다 고 말에 송배라 님이는 배송을 배라 디사지 좀 뒤에 까야나들이 망보 열에 올래 들이 대따와따와디 대 맞tab나 들이 망도 들이 너발은 더듬지장 앞에 딱좀 따빼 들이 빼다 망도 로고 요래 샘고바 마디나 샘고바 뒤서 찍라야는 되고 요래 들이 상어 동도 조어들 가리 샘도 삼행제도 맞아봐 여자 돈이 다 형제 맞아봐 진실게 형제 맞지 봐 형제게 진실 맞아와 다 대일이네 들이 꼭 올래 남바 산제배 올해 까 용수도 봐 지풍 예세죠 봐 다다 찍기는 다 숨게 요래 배나 올해 탐제 덴바 이런 거 요래 덴바지 가려야 되나 동담고 덴바 지시래 그저고 덴바 삼신제래 돈이 이제 카마다나 되는 콜로 된 저게 도제 저기 강 정제 동 대래 들이 뒤때문에 되니 탐제게 살았다 되니 그래 그 수들이 왜 이방에 잠깐만 Japa Sosaro, Jitakama Sumchalam do the Rupe Rentasma, Marana Jabata.
In tantric practice, there are many different kind of samayas. Each empowerment will entail you to observe, one set of obligations or requirements.